All right, so we are moving on in our punctuation unit. We've covered end punctuation and the semicolon and the colon, and now we are moving on to the comma. So if you want to pause the video right now, please, and take these notes. I'm going to count to 5 in my head, and I'm going to keep on going. Okay, so the comma is an interesting punctuation mark because it's one of the ones we learn in elementary school. And like the period, we are told certain things about it that are, helpful when we're in grade 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but get less helpful the older we get and the more we need to use them. So when we think about the comma, oftentimes we think about it as a pause mark. And we think, oh, okay, it signals for the reader to pause, or some of us have even heard that it tells the reader to take a quick breath. But that's not entirely true. Now, when we first started talking about punctuation, we talked a lot about how punctuation is a series of signals to our reader. And so if you take a look, I drew my little car, and the cars are getting worse, I think, the longer we do these lessons, and he's signaling. And so what's the signal that the comma is telling the reader? What's the signal? So the comma actually tells the reader to section off parts of a sentence. So if you go back into the history of the word comma, you eventually get back to Greek and you get the word comma with a K, and it means to cut or to section. So we are taking a look at how we're going to use a comma to section off or to make cuts in the sentence to help it make more sense. It is not a breath mark. So if you've always thought of it like that, you kind of need to stop thinking about it. And the reason it's not a breath mark is this. When we are punctuating in real life, like when we're talking to somebody face to face, we might comma by taking a pause. We might section off our thoughts by taking a pause, but we might also section off by doing something with our face. We might open our eyes a little bit wider. We might tip our head one way or the other. We may even jut our chin out a little bit to emphasize. We might change the register of our voice. So think about the sentence. Let's think about the sentence. My hamster, who is not really a young hamster, fell down the stairs yesterday. Okay, that's sad. Sorry about that. But see how in the middle, I added some extra information and I changed the register of my voice. My voice went down lower to let you know that I was sectioning that part off. I also did take a pause on either side, but I didn't necessarily use my breath as a comma. Okay, so because punctuation is our voice on paper, what we're actually doing with the comma is sectioning off parts of our sentence to make it clearer for our reader. Okay, so there are actually 5 uses of the comma that we're going to go through in the next month. But today we're just going to do use number 1, and it's one of the most common uses for the comma, and it's one of the ones that I think is the most simplest to use, and that is to use a comma to separate items in a list. And so here's the example. The example is, I remembered my phone, comma, charger, comma, and earbuds. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but down here, this little comma before the and, this is a really special comma. It's called the Oxford comma, and it gets its name from the Oxford Style Manual. Now, technically speaking, you don't necessarily have to have this comma there. It still makes sense without it, but it's a comma that I really like, and about, 99 times out of 100, I find that it adds more clarity to the sentence, so I would like you to practice using it. So that last comma before the and is called the Oxford comma, and I put here, we love it. Mostly I love it. I'm hoping you're going to get to love it too. Okay, so I'm going to flip the page, and when you see me flip the page, please pause the video and take these notes. Here we go. All right, take those notes. I'm going to count to 5 and come back in. All right, why do we need to section off items in a list anyways? Like, who cares? What if we just don't use the comma? Well, things get weird if you don't section off those ideas. So let's take a look at the bad example. I like cooking my hamster and my puppy. That's really gross, and you shouldn't do that to your pets. But if you add commas, it's a lot less violent and a lot more clear. So I like cooking my hamster and my puppy. Okay, so I think that this sentence is a lot clearer. It's not a great sentence. I don't know why you would add your love of cooking into your love of your pets, but whatever. But you can see how the commas make a difference. Okay. Sometimes lists include phrases. So up here you have a really simple kind of listing sentence. Here though you're going to have phrases, and those phrases are going to make up items in a list. So have a look. The example is, I ran across the road, comma, delivered the cookies, comma, and ran home again. So in this instance, using commas, sections off the list to make the sentence clearer. It would be really weird if we read that sentence by saying, I ran across the road, delivered the cookies, and ran home again. We don't know where the sections go, and we then don't know where to emphasize, actually. So when you do your worksheet, please make sure that you are trying to figure out, okay, am I sectioning off just single items in a list, or am I sectioning off phrases that kind of show a sequence of events or a sequence of, or a bigger list? Okay, so go ahead, do that worksheet, and good luck. Email me if you need help.